I'm joined by Mr. Ngomane Osho himself. Papa Bear, we like to call him. Hey, Walter, how are you?
I'm good. How are you doing, Candice?
Brilliant, I'm brilliant. You woke up nice and early for us.
Very nice and early. Thanks.
We love
Thanks
it.
to you.
Thank you very much. We appreciate it. We appreciate it. You do a lot of things throughout the year. I mean, Jacaranda Fest is always the highlight.
Yeah.
But you have a lot of smaller events that you have going on that are also growing in impact.
Yeah, we do.
And one of them is what's on tomorrow, the Jabulani Jazz Festival.
Yes. So,
tell us a little bit about that.
So Jabulani Jazz Festival is a baby in one of our baby properties, if you want to call it that. So it's on its 4th year running. So this year we have it actually happening tomorrow at the venue with a number of artists, our local acts. We don't have any international acts this year. But yeah, that's what we have. So Jabulani is up next. After that, we've got PUPPETEER.
Wow. I need to understand a little bit why it is such an important thing for you to consistently have not just a strong presence in the creative sector, but also a strong push to grow it as well.
I think, like our creative economy is growing, believe it or not. So a lot of people think that it's stagnant, but it is growing. But I think where we occupy, the space that we occupy is more events. We do still do management as part of our business, but event and the live performance space is what we occupy. And we always try and push to make sure that we do it excellently in that space as part of the whole ecosystem. Because there's obviously guys that we work with that do, for example, sound equipment. There's guys that do venues. There's guys, the artists themselves. And our role is to make sure that we create event properties that make sense. Yeah.
Now, as part of your lineup, I mean, I saw Selma on that lineup.
Yes.
I saw, there was somebody else that I saw that I've forgotten now.
Got Alexio Kawara.
Yes, there's Alexio, and then there was a third one.
Josh Mick.
Josh Mick. Josh was who I had.
Yeah.
Because so he's fairly young. He's fairly young, but he's been making such great waves.
Yeah,
in
Josh
space.
Josh has been one of those artists that's been backbone of a lot of bands because he's a bass player. So he plays for a lot of our very well-known artists. But I think sometimes we just don't know who are the people that are playing within these bands. So he has been one of those key figures in the music circles as a bass player. But he also has his own outfit where he, composes his own music, performs his own music, and records his own music. So he was actually touring in South Africa last year, for most part of South Africa. Most part of last year in SA. But he's a very versatile musician, multi-instrumentalist, but I guess he's known as a bass player more than anything. And for us, it's important to be able to not only highlight established artists, but also artists that are wanting to get out, artists that are starting out, and artists that are, that are pushing themselves to get to a certain level.
Tell me a little bit about the thought process behind putting your lineups together. How do you create your acts?
I think of myself as a chef.
Yes.
If you sit down and you have a 3-course meal, which is what we have tomorrow, and if you sit down, if you have a 5-course meal, the way it's structured and the way it's put together is according to palette and according to, how the first act to the last act, how they complement each other. So we don't just throw acts together because they're musicians. So it has to make sense. So that when you are watching, I think when you've come to Jacaranda before, the whole point is for you to be there from 12 until 12 and not be bored.
Yes.
We want you to find it. We want you to find it difficult to go and buy food and go to the restroom because everything is so exciting.
I might miss this moment. I might miss this moment.
Do you get what I mean?
Yeah.
So we don't want a situation where we put acts together just randomly and they don't complement each other. So if you watch an act at 6 o'clock, you will enjoy that act because the act that you've watched at 2 o'clock made sense. So it kind of prepares you for what's happening at 6. I don't know if that makes sense.
No, it makes perfect sense.
So yeah, so it has to make sense for your ears, in food terms for your taste buds. So yeah, that's literally how we come up with lineups.
I'll tell you, as an end user, I think you definitely are doing a really good job in that space because you're quite right. It's a moment where you're like, oh, you look at the lineup and you're like, okay, so they're starting at this time, oh, but I can't, oh, but And you're like, okay,
there must be confusion.
Now I need to get there early because and they really do connect to each other in a very interesting and very intricate way that if you're not paying attention, you definitely will miss.
It, yeah.
You've also now taken on speaking engagements. You've been sitting on different panels, different platforms, talking about the growth of the creative economy in Africa in general.
Yeah.
How did that start, and how did it evolve?
How did it start? I think, my journey actually I think a lot of people don't know this, but my journey in the creative space started off with actually me teaching. When I say teaching, I used to be a puppeteer. So I used to do puppets for kids.
Huh?
Yeah.
I've known you, I don't know how many years. I am today years old when I learned that. That's interesting.
So yeah, that's a long story. So I started doing puppets. That's actually how I started. Before I started playing guitar,
I think I caught up on the guitar part. That's
so
where
I trained as a puppeteer in South Africa to doing puppets. So teaching has always been part of who I am and what I do, but creative teaching, if that makes sense. So I trained as a puppeteer and how to make puppets and how to do puppets and how to write scripts for puppets. So we used to, and this was when I was still involved at Celebration Church.
Right.
So we used to work in the children's church department, doing these kind of skits for kids. So that is my foundation as far as teaching goes. And I've always then wanted and always was keen to teach and share what I know. I don't know everything, but the little bit that I know, I'm always keen to to share with others, because the other thing is also other people have shared knowledge with me. So it's not good for you to withhold knowledge, because if you die in your knowledge, which is what a lot of people say, no, it took me so long to acquire this. You must also suffer to get this knowledge.
Yes.
I don't think that's the way.
But if you go with it, then it's gone.
And it's gone, exactly. So we want to be able to teach so that those that come after us are better than us, instead of wanting to be the king at the top and then being the king. So those that you teach must become better than you, and those that you work with must eventually be better than you. I think that's how we're going to grow as a nation, and that's how we're going to grow as creatives as well. So I'm not withholding knowledge. And funny enough, we're actually doing an IP-related workshop today with, I think, Brenda Matanga.
Yes.
So IP is a big thing, and intellectual property is a big thing. So we've got a whole day event happening today with her and her firm, because they are the IP property gurus.
Right.
So we're also speaking there, and I'm speaking along with Keen Shapaidze, on the intellectual property side as far as music is concerned. So.
Tell me something. I love that you speak of sharing the knowledge that you have. But also we had a moment in time where our artists were also stuck in a loop of not being very receptive to new information, not being very open to learning new methods and open to learning new things. Have we crossed that bridge? Are they now starting to pay attention and implement?
I don't think we'll ever cross it, because it's a human condition. The human condition says that if you attain a certain level of success, nobody can teach you anything. If you are supposedly on the top of your game, no one can teach you anything. So I think there are certain people, certain artists, or certain, if you personally feel like you've achieved something, then a lot of people then put their brakes, when it comes to learning. Because now I've reached a certain stage, and now I've become this person. If you hit a certain target, so that's, I think, is a human condition, and it needs to be. You just need someone to make a paradigm shift in how they think, and know that you are always continually gonna need to learn, because there's always gonna be people that are gonna teach you something new. I don't know everything. Like, I would sit here and I'm like, I know nothing about TV and broadcasting, but those behind the cameras and people that you work with know a lot more about that than I do. I can learn from them.
Absolutely.
But if I feel like I know everything, it means that I would never humble myself enough to sit under somebody and be able to be taught. So I think it's more a personal thing, that someone has to walk through a certain journey for them to realize that I need to continuously learn, no matter where you are, no matter what level of success you have.
So our job remains to just continuously send that information, whether they receive it or not.
Exactly.
That's now on them. Now, I remember when we go back to let's go back to the jazz, the jazz fest that's happening tomorrow. So for me, growing up, jazz was a thing. And then we had a generation in between that kind of lost the taste for it.
Yeah.
And then we had a few of the eccentric ones who picked it up again.
Yes.
How have you ensured that as you create some of these events, you're bridging that gap and roping in some of those we may have missed along the way?
Yeah, I think with every genre, there is a demography that consumes the music. You know, we have hip hop, we have jazz, we have sungura, and we have reggae, zim dancehall. There is
we also need a genre called noise.
Yeah, true. So with every genre, there's a bunch of people or community that consumes that particular type of music. So Jacaranda Music Festival is a music festival, so it encompasses all genres. But I kind of feel like hip hop, for example, needs its own festival that just focuses on hip hop because it's so complex. And the same thing with jazz. It needed its own stage. As much as we can have also jazz artists at Jacaranda, but I felt like we needed to have its own space to accommodate those that are like connoisseurs of that particular music. Because some of them won't come to Jacaranda because Tuku Jambo must speak.
Exactly.
But they want a different environment for them to enjoy that music. So classical music, for example, is another genre that we would not put at Jacaranda per se, because it needs a certain environment for it to be consumed, a certain setting.
Right.
So those kind of genres you need to think about and say, okay, yes, there's a space where you can put all music, and there's a space where you need to specifically sit for this type of music. And I think for us, jazz was that genre that we said, okay, cool, let's have its own space, let's give it its own stage, so that those that love it can come and consume it in a controlled environment that makes it easier for them to consume jazz.
An environment that they understand and can relate to.
Yeah.
So it's taking place tomorrow. What time does it start?
We're starting at 6:30 up until 10:30, so
Okay.
we'll be in bed early. Yeah, so we can go for an after party after that. Yeah, so 6:30 to 10:30.
Okay. So you said it's at the venue. What
venue
are our
level,
door
no.
charges?
$20 gets you in. You can hopefully you'll be able to get tickets at the door, but because they're selling fast. So if you can get them today, you can get them at Tech Tools in Avondale. Also up until 2:00 tomorrow, you can still get them from Tech Tools in Avondale. If there are still tickets, you can get them at the door.
I like how that sounds. They're selling out fast if they are still there.
Yeah, it's true.
And those are words that just make me so happy, because it means, look, something is moving, something is working.
We had this situation last year with Jacaranda,
yes,
and people tickets ran out.
Yes.
And people were saying, we thought we were just saying, you know what I mean? So yeah.
So true. Because I remember one. I think it was the last day. I had a few friends who wanted to attend, and because they are analastminute.com, they went back home.
Yeah.
They had to go back home.
So
They
it's
couldn't
better to
buy
get
their
your tickets in
So
advance.
yes, please do.
Yeah.
All right, Walter. Well, thank you so much. We will be seeing you back again. You talked about something else that's coming up.
Carpe Diem.
When is that?
That's in June, 8th of June.
You're not letting us rest, eh?
No, people must have fun.
What? Just very quickly, what's that one about?
That's a very much a DJ-based event. Again, like what I was saying about different environments, different genres. A lot of DJs want to play Jacaranda, but Jacaranda is mostly for live instruments. So we do feature DJs, but then we decided to create a new property that caters to just DJs and in that kind of genre. So we just DJs only. Yeah.
Yes. 2024 is not even halfway through, but so much has happened and so much excitement.
Yeah.
Walter, thank you so much for coming.
Thank you
through.
for having me.
And we will be seeing you tomorrow at the Jabulani Jazz Festival at the venue.
Yeah, thank
All
you.
right.
Konapo, Ipapo pa ZTN Prime, DSTV channel 294, the place to be.